Hello everybody, this is Starman, and welcome back to Let's Play Betrayal at Krondor. Well, last time you remember, we finished exploring the Nighthawk base under Caval Run, and discovered evidence that Navan Sandu is the new leader of the Nighthawks. We also uncovered evidence that Count Corvallis might be involved, but that's been rather handily disputed. And it looks like we've got... Well, I thought we had somebody ready to ambush us, but we'll go ahead and sleep for the night first. And yeah, it looks like ambush is a-coming. Luckily I'm too stealthy to trip them at this point. And yeah, I think we will have a fairly safe journey into Kenting Rush. Because, yeah, it spoils little, as I pointed out last time, to point out that Navan Sandu is in fact our Nighthawk leader. You might have guessed this from the fact that the chess piece that leads us into Caval Run was hidden in a well here in Kenting Rush, which is where he makes his home. But we're not going to confront him just yet. I had not expected to see you three again for quite some time. How can Navan Sandu be of assistance to you? Well, we can confront him now. But there is more than one way to trick Sandu into revealing his true nature. And I'm going to show both of them off. In fact, what the hey, I will go ahead and show this one off first, although I was going to do the work to have the first one come about first, but since we've done all the work for one, we might as well do it. The first way that you can trick Sandu into revealing his identity is that, as I mentioned before, we talked to Owen's cousin about that family book that talked about the different legends of the family and the magic sword, and she said that she loaned it to Navan. And we found said book in the middle of the Nighthawk hideout. Pardon me, my glass just nudged my microphone there. So yes, we can ask him about the sword and ask, oh, do you happen to have that book? And then catch him alive. Yeah, we have that book, and here's where we found it. Which, curiously enough, is the tactic that James uses in the book Krondor, the Betrayal. The other way is a bit more convoluted and a lot more work, especially with... well, the gear that we're packing at the moment, but I'll show that off in a moment. Anyway, let's ask him about the sword. Eugene Corvallis told us that she loaned you a book about the Guevara de Revanche. Might I borrow it from you? Unfortunately, I don't have it on my person. I left it at home. At home. Are you certain you didn't misplace it anywhere? As it is alone, I keep it in a very safe place where it cannot become damaged. Somewhere like Caval Run, I always wondered what the leader of the Nighthawks might be like, and now it seems we meet face to face. Interesting conclusion. How did you arrive at it? We found the Abbot's journal in Caval Run, after we had a slight run-in with a few of your men. You mentioned earlier that you thought Count Corvallis might have killed his son, but as I recall, the body was never found, and you have displayed an unnerving interest in the Corvallis family, the kind of interest that a son might display in a family from whom he has been separated. Did you kill yourself, or was that your father's doing? I believe congratulations are in order. You've accomplished what my father and his men, the King's detachment from Bastira, were unable to achieve. You're a clever man. Why the Nighthawks, Navan, or should I call you Neville? Suppose for a moment a woman bears her husband a strong, attractive, intelligent son. As he grows, he shows every sign that he'll make a fine man, but somehow different. Suppose that at about age 11, the boy's father discovers the boy is not in fact his son, but the son of another man, a bastard. Among the common folk it would be no great crime, but supposing the fooled father was noble. That would change things, wouldn't it? What if the real father had gotten the child upon the indiscreet noblesse as a mean to gain power? You became a threat to the succession, so the Count opted to eliminate you. He locked you in the wine cellar, but you found your way into the care of the Nighthawks. Yes, they'd come to Caval to regroup following their rout by Prince Rufa, initially thought to ransom me. When they realized the Count wouldn't pay for my return, they decided to kill me, but I convinced them that I had mental powers. The spyglass? It has been useful on more than one occasion. It gave me control of the Nighthawks and also allowed me to predict my father's moves. He believed I was dead, of course, but the appearance of Navan Sandu years later made him nervous. He believed I might know about the scandal and would tell what I know. But that wouldn't have been any fun. Far better to torture your murderer than to simply kill him, don't you think? He became most agitated when I torched the family's keep. It was a shame to lose it, but a necessary sacrifice. So you could have control of the caverns underneath the keep. A perfect hiding place for you and your men, and an excellent rendezvous for the Mortahel with whom you were dealing. The tunnels were extensive and fairly unknown by any outside the family. Besides, as husband to Egwene, I would eventually have been its rightful master. Not that I would have conjugated the marriage. Ishap forbid. She would have had some unpleasant death on our wedding night. Tragedy seems to plague the Corvallis family. Between the family fortune and Delacon's deposits with Incendius and Caval Keep, I could have run the Nighthawks indefinitely. I want the key, Navin. Hand it over. Perhaps you'd like to take it from me. Since you first arrived in Romney looking for the Nighthawks, I've been watching you, Senior James. For years I've heard tales about Jimmy the Hand from the men who survived your Nighthawk purges in Krondor. They told very impressive tales about you. Now it's time to see if you can match a true Nighthawk in combat. Navin ripped off his tunic. Beneath he wore the familiar uniform of the Guild of Death, a golden hawk emblazoned on a black gambeson. Ordinarily I don't dress so heavily, he said with a grin, withdrawing his weapon, but you interrupted some business I was planning to take care of. So, yeah, you do it this way, you have pretty much the entire plot unfolded for you. Navan Desandu is, in fact, Neville Corvallis, who has been pretending to be a random noble in order to get revenge on his family. Not unjustly, it might be said, but his business is getting in the way of our business. So, we'll go ahead and lightning bolt him. And, well, we'll make this into a sword fight worthy of the name. And, well, I can't get a shot from here, so let Goraf rest. Because they do make a big deal in the book about how Navan is a master swordsman, nearly the match of James. And they do actually have the chess match in there as well. And Navan does prove to be quite the chess player. And he compliments James's skill and as a swordsman and a chess player. And James gets a rather awesome line about how, you know, I learned chess from Lord Horazicon, the ambassador of Kesh, who is reputed to be one of the finest players in the novels. And as he wins a sword fight, he says, I learned my swordplay from Prince Arufa, because Prince Arufa is also acknowledged as the greatest swordsman in the kingdom. So, that increased our abilities a fair bit, and that gives us a key, a diamond, I said a diamond, a great sword, which is poisoned, and a note, which, well, we'll switch that for a moment. Check the note out. Navan, I'm increasingly concerned. I'm concerned by Count Corvallis' increasing patrols in the area. I think he will soon discover the entrance behind the waterfall. I know you don't credit him with much intelligence, but his patrol may accidentally follow one of Delacon's envoys. Please return south of Caval Keep as soon as possible. And this is to help you find the location of the Nighthawk hideout if by chance you take the other way of getting Navan to reveal himself and don't go to Caval Run first. But, yeah. Interesting question is who that note comes from, but we'll go ahead and restore our last bookmark. And I will show you the other way that we can get Navan to reveal himself. And sneak back through this ambush again. And we'll go ahead and cut north this way, which I think will actually lead us to where we're supposed to go. Actually, it does, but We'll stop by the tavern first. So, the Temple of Kahuli at last. And yeah, they close at night, so I have to wait until daybreak. And I purposely avoided talking to the priests here until this moment, so... They were escorted to the lector's chambers. Seated behind a large mahogany desk was a man of middle years, his hair graying at his temples, sweeping back from a wide tanned forehead. Without standing, he motioned for them to take seats. "I have very little time this morning," the lector said. "Please make whatever request you have as direct as possible." "That suits me fine. We're looking for a band of murderers," James said. "They killed a squad of men sent from Bostira to the First Advisor's order, on the First Advisor's orders, to investigate the possible activities of the Nighthawks in Romney. The idea occurred to me that while we were standing in the meditation chambers, the Temple Kahuli might know something of it." "I'm listening," he replied gravely. "When I was studying under Father Timothy in the Temple of Astalon and Krondor," James said, "I learned quite a bit about the various temples and their gods. As I recall, Kahuli is the god of revenge." "Justice!" the lector snapped. "Not revenge. If one is innocent, he has nothing to fear from the Howler after fugitives. If one has violated the wise strictures of our gods and eluded punishment, however, we are the hounds that bay at his heels. There is no place he can run to that we cannot sniff them out." James nodded. "A well-known fact. It is also well known that Temple Kahuli hires assassins on occasion to do the sniffing. If you mean to imply that we hire the Guild of Assassins to kill the men in Bostira, it is not so. We've had no dealings with the Hawks of Night for several months. It may well be that we have common cause at the moment." The priest stopped for a moment of considering something, then continued slowly. "They have become churlish. They no longer follow the codes of piety which we lay out for the behavior of our faithful, and they have not paid a tithe in quite some time. We should separate from them our ranks, but no protectors of the faithful challenge them." James leaned across the desk. "I want the Nighthawks, Lector. Tell me the name of the man who leads them, and where he may be found. We can both profit from an end to him." The Lector laughed, a dark, rumbling laugh that had nothing of humor in it. "I wish it was that easy. Kahuli, how I wish. But when the Nighthawks swore their oath to the temple, they required of us a holy oath to Kahuli himself, that their identities could never be revealed to any that were not of the temple itself. You have to be at least protector of the faith before I can even think of giving you the name of whomever you seek." "I see." James sat back in his chair, his eyes full of brooding. "How would we become protectors?" "You would have to study with the prelate who lives nearby and learn the codes of piety," the lector said, a clever smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Though I will warn you, his house is well protected. There are many who do perceive us as dispensers of revenge and attempt to save themselves peremptorily. I will say this, if you can come to a temple and have performed even one of the acts of piety that the lector teaches you, I think I can see to it that you are made protectors of the faith." "And you will tell us where to find the Nighthawks?" James asked. The priest smiled. "Most certainly." So we have to go find the lector and perform a task of piety to prove that we are worthy of becoming defenders of the faith. Well, yep, this is... We encountered this place before, but we couldn't get past the guards at that point. There are armed guards in front of the house. "We are on official business," called James. Placing a hand on his weapon, one of the guards shot back. "On whose authority?" "On the authority of the Prince of Krondor," James said matter-of-factly, "and we were sent by the priest of the Temple Kahuli." Apparently satisfied with the answer, the guards moved aside and let them pass. And yet there's a whole bunch of rogues. There were strange markings on the door. James studied the stone with a questioning eye, then knocked loudly. The man who came to the door introduced himself as the prelate of the Temple Kahuli. "I am not liked well by the plain ones," he said. "They do not understand the supreme justice of my actions. Those who break the rule of law must suffer the divine consequences of their behavior." The prelate went on to tell them of his experiences while trying to become prelate and of the codes of piety so strictly enforced by the temple. Nodding politely, James asked, "What can you tell us of these codes?" Recognizing their interest, he countered the question with one of his own. "If you would care to make a donation to a temple, say 50 sovereigns, I think I could be persuaded to reveal them to you. Will you pay?" "Yes." "The Temple of Kahuli thanks you," he said. "Now, please follow me, and I shall teach you the codes of piety." The prelate led them into a small room. He stood behind a makeshift altar and spoke, sometimes ranted, about the great god Kahuli, warrior god of vengeance, unraveler of mysteries into truth. They listened without much interest until at last he began to speak of the pious codes. "Subjugation of the will," he began. "None will be considered a true follower of Kahuli without first renouncing all ties to king and country." James glanced about the room nervously as the prelate continued. "Mortification of the flesh. None shall be allowed entry into the Temple Kahuli until they have cleansed themselves of all appetites of the flesh to purify themselves for the intervention of Kahuli's will. And finally, subordination of service. None shall do service to Kahuli without first proving their loyalty by passing the water curtain and praying to Kahuli for one full cycle of the seasons. He continued his sermon for nearly an hour, but revealed little of interest. At last he was finished, and they were allowed to leave. So, yeah, we go through that, and you have to forego all ties to everything but the temple, which is a pretty good sign that Count Corvallis can't be the leader of the Nighthawks, because he is still serving his noble office. Subjugation of service, must prove loyalty by passing the water curtain and praying for one full cycle of the seasons. Well, we don't have time to pray for a year, so all we can do is the mortification of the flesh bit. And what exactly does mortification of the flesh mean? Well, if you must know, it means that we have to starve ourselves to death. And with all the food we've got, that's not going to be an easy task. And I had thought that we could store everything here in the barn, but it appears to not be big enough to hold several packages of rations. So we are going to have to dump our food elsewhere and just hope that this works. So, we are straining the limits of this bag, I think. So I can't stack one pack of rations into a barn, but I can stuff as much food as I want to into a single bag. Okay, and we'll rest one day to become starving. James stumbled. Cursing oaths that seemed far from appropriate within the hollowed temple walls, he followed the priest robed in light gray. Behind him, Owen and Goref seemed similarly pained, but all made it well enough into the lector's study. Pushing their way into the oak-paneled room, they took their seats and waited. In a few moments, the lector arrived, arrayed in his dark robes of office. Looking at their faces, he nodded with a certain grim satisfaction. "You have chosen the mortification of the flesh," he said. "An admirable act of piety. It is enough." James nodded. "Good. Tell me about the Guild of Assassins." "In a moment." Stepping back to the door, he whispered to the priest who waited outside. Footsteps hurried off into the distance. "Hestian will bring rations for you. You'll be of little use against Navan and his band without your strength." James sat forward in his chair. "Navan who?" "Navan Dusandu," the lector said, emphasizing each syllable. "He lives here in Kinting Rush, posing as a traveling merchant. That gives him the excuse he needs to cover the strange visitors he has from time to time. He leads the Nighthawks, but the time has come for the end of the Guild of Assassins." "Agreed," James said, wobbling to his feet. "We appreciate your help." "Wait," the lector said, loving to stare at them. "As Kahuli has come to your aid as protectors of the faith, you must now aid us. It is your responsibility now to slay him. He is excommunicated to the temple of Kahuli. His life is forfeit." "You didn't mention this in the bargain before," James said. "Shall we be expecting other demands of you later?" The priest shook his head. "Only this. You may do as you please thereafter, though I would warn you always to tread carefully from this day forth when dealing with Kahuli. You are now, in our eyes, the arms of the tireless pursuer." Okay, so let's see if our food has been stolen this quickly. It has not. And yeah, I guess they gave me a full set of rations when I helped him out. Oh well. Well, let's go find Navan. And trigger a slightly different conversation this time around. So this time we can ask about Kahuli and ask about excommunicate. Let's go for Kahuli first. I'm not familiar with the worshippers of Kahuli. Generally speaking, Benef and Aslan were popular with the people in Krondor. It's difficult to publicly worship a god dedicated to revenge, almost as hard to worship as I imagine the goddess of death. People naturally assume that when you begin pilgrimage on a regular basis that you have a score that you wish to settle, which more often than not is true. They blind themselves to the fact that while Kahuli is sometimes called the pursuer, he's also known as the judge of truth. When you can't get justice anywhere else, people turn to Kahuli. And who did you wish to avenge? Myself, naturally. It's been some time since I've been to the temple, however. My problem pretty much solved itself. I didn't need divine intervention anymore, and so it's easier to stay away than pay the tithe. Do you remember any of the codes of piety? The priest mentioned them, and I was curious what they were. I tried to forget them. I can remember the first one. It had something to do with subjugation of the will, if I remember correctly. When you join the temple, you have to renounce all ties to king and kingdom. That's why you'll find there aren't any nobility in the temple, of course. Well, when you command a private army, why bother? And, well, now we can ask about excommunicate. On behalf of the Temple Kahuli, I inform you that you are now excommunicate. They formally have renounced their ties to the Guild of Assassins and will announce the identities of all who belong to it. The Nighthawks are finished, Navin. Despite the request that I murder you, I will let you live if you tell me where I can find the more-to-hell communiques concerning the attack. A lie, Senior, and you know it. You'll have my guts for killing those men, Romney, whether I tell you or not. Since you first arrived looking for the Nighthawks, I've been watching you. For years I've heard tales about Jimmy the Hand from the men who survived your Nighthawk purchase in Krondor. They told very impressive tales about you. Now it's time to see if you can match a true Nighthawk in combat. And same combat as before. We will go ahead and make this a little bit more... What the heck? Owen, you disappoint me. Well, just dogpile on him. Right, so we now have this cellar key. Bit of gold, a set of dragon scale armor, which is very fine stuff, but we've already got a pretty decent set of it. Now, come to think of it, we'll ditch that ring we don't need anymore. And, well... so we're not going to have much use for that redweed brew. And, yeah, we will need that chess piece to get back into the run. But we won't need much after that. And we'll give that to Goraf, as he has all that. She can lose that sword, though, but... Yeah, we'll let James have the sword. And, well... And we can buy a decent ring with that one. Well, one more thing to do before we end this. I'm going to head back to the Temple Kahuli and bless that sword. So yeah, poison greatsword. And yeah, I am loaded for bear on rations at this point. But I'm not going to ditch them because I am going to need them fairly soon, but you'll see why. And yeah, jewels, rees, kings. We can get a good price on the diamond here. Yeah, We got a good price on that diamond, all right. Criminally. And, well, even though Goraf doesn't strictly need this ring, he doesn't. We'll let James keep his, though, and, well, not gonna ditch that just yet. And I am trying to clear up the inventory because there is one other thing I did want to mess around with inventory-wise. You know, leave a dead Nighthawk out here in the middle of the road. Not sure what really increased, but never mind. Okay, so now I've got enough space cleared. I think James will be able to take that, and we'll go back and get that armor set blessed. There is a method to my madness here. Because, in case you hadn't guessed, at the end of Chapter 3, our party is going to be split once more. And I'm going to send James to attend to his future comrades by letting them become loaded for bear. So now, James will be going off to see them with, well, his strength is increased. Melee and defense are up. Owen's strength was increased to 18. His defense has gone up by 1. And Goraf is pretty darn hoss. But, yeah. So now James has 3 sets of max blessed dragon plate armor, 2 very high quality blessed swords. And Owen and Goraf are about as good as can be. So now all we have to do to end Chapter 3 is head back to Caval Run and open up that one locked room. And that is what we shall do next time. We'll see you then.